Hey, how's everyone doing tonight? Welcome to On the Ring Apron. I'm Steve.
And I'm Kia. Hi.
Hopefully everyone's having a good night and has had a good week up till now. We've got a very exciting show for you. We do have a lot we've got to go over, though, so we do want to make sure that we try to get it all in because, you know, it's been a long week for everyone, so we're not going to sit here and have you guys listen to us longer than you need to. But anyway, we do have, before we begin, we do have one special group of folks that we want to address here tonight. So, Kia, we're going to let you take the wheel on that.
I want to go ahead and say thank you on the behalf of me and my husband for TooSweetCosplay. They featured us this week. Actually, what is it, today?
Their video released today on YouTube.
If you go and check them out, I would subscribe to their YouTube, their Instagram, and any other form of social media that they have. They're really a good group of people. Follow them, like them, subscribe to them. You know what to do. But anyway, thank you guys. That meant the world to us. Awesome.
Well, it's nice to see that, you know, our cosplays that we were doing, especially our new Naomi and Jimmy Uso ones, were appreciated and were seen. You know, they do an excellent show. They go over commentary once a week, similar to what we do. They also address topics, you know, outside the ring as well. So they're very much fledgling, very similar to what we are, but do very good work. A very popular show that they've put together. So take a second. You'll see our video. We put a link into it on our Instagram. So take the time to go take a peek at them. They do a lot of good work, and you know we appreciate you guys letting us on, and you know maybe a collaboration at some point here in the future if we have the opportunity. But hey, let's get to it. We got a lot to go over. This week we start with Monday Night Raw as we always do. We end up
Monday. Okay, sorry. Go ahead.
Is this what I'm supposed to say? Like you'll buy the whole seat, but you'll only need the edge.
Yeah, that's it.
And speaking of Edge, how ironic that we speak about that. Of course, the news coming out that Edge is going to end up missing probably the rest of 2020 due to getting a tricep injury in his greatest wrestling match ever with Randy Orton. This ended up leading to a segment where basically Orton led himself to believe that that is yet another legend that he has killed, and it led to an unexpected expected return.
From one of my favorites, Christian. You're my peep.
And, of course, as everyone knows, or most folks know anyway, and for those who don't, I'm about to announce it now, Christian, of course, had to retire several years ago due to a grade 3 concussion, was never able to be medically cleared to be able to compete again. So they were able to, Orton was able to talk him into having an unsanctioned match, which, of course, means that, you know, they both signed paperwork that says that neither the other competitor nor the WWE would be held liable for anything that happens to the other person should they get injured more than they already are.
Here's my thing with that. As much as I love both men, and I do, that's just what Vipers do. They try to back you into a corner so they can strike. Yeah. And that's exactly what Randy Orton did to Christian.
Right, and throughout the evening, he was getting told by several different people. We had the Big Show, who we saw a lot of the Big Show this week.
Yeah,
so.
He came back
he came back in several segments.
Exactly.
So we saw a lot of Big Show this week. But then he was also met up by several others, and primarily it was Ric Flair who tried on 4 or 5 different occasions. He's like, I know Orton, I know the kind of person he is, I know the kind of way he's going to be. He's arguably the greatest competitor I've ever worked with. This is not going to end well for you. And ultimately, in the end, the bell ends up ringing, and immediately Flair low blows Christian, immediately leading to Orton hitting the punt and ending the match.
Never was I so excited about seeing Ric Flair. Woo!
I almost viewed the low blow like it was almost like a set of mercy.
It was mercy.
It was mercy because he knew that if he went ahead and did it, Orton would finish him quickly.
Yeah.
Versus, you know, taking his time and then ultimately probably still getting a punt to the head anyway. So, you know, Raw ending on that. But even before that, Raw ended up having several great segments, including a pair of championship matches. You had Nia Jax and Asuka go at it again for the Raw Women's Championship, a rematch from 24 hours before that, which ended in a double countout. This one ended up having a little more controversy as halfway through the match, Nia would end up shoving down senior referee John Cone. Let me make sure I've got that right.
Yeah.
And Cone clearly going to disqualify Nia, but then about the time that he went to go disqualify her, Asuka rolls up Nia, and instead Cone chooses to fast count a pinfall instead of allowing the DQ to happen. Both are now, quote, under investigation now of their conduct. But at the same time, interesting that they would run a storyline that would involve now a referee kind of going above and beyond his normal job, and also Nia taking a pinfall loss. You know, that's kind of surprising.
You can't take a pinfall loss being one of the, literally and figuratively, being one of the biggest women, one of the women who are actually trying to show dominance, and then pushing a ref is uncalled for, in my opinion. You shouldn't push a ref. So I understand.
You shouldn't be doing that in any sport.
I understand from his perspective why he did it. So I'm not mad.
Well, I umpire baseball on the sides, as you guys saw from our show last week, and if I get shoved down by a coach, I'm sorry, that coach isn't going to be sticking around much longer. But it's going to be interesting to see, if ultimately, if Asuka had beaten Nia clean, probably Nia's run is over, but now you've got a referee involvement. Is it going to lead to them having yet another match?
It's confrontation. It's conflicting.
Conflict of interest.
That's it.
So we'll see how it goes. Another championship that ended up being put on the line was the WWE Championship, as R-Truth, the 24/7 champion, once again kind of
ran his mouth,
putting his nose where it didn't belong. It had already been an interesting night for Bobby Lashley already, because he ended up having to confront both MVP and Lana, his wife, over the situation that happened at the pay-per-view concerning Lashley's loss to Drew McIntyre. And ultimately, as everyone kind of expected, Lashley siding with MVP over his wife and ultimately asking for a divorce. So Lana will be divorcing in storyline for the second time in 8 months. Poor thing.
She can't keep a man.
I hope she lands on her feet.
She can't keep a man.
Right here. As long as she keeps her mouth closed.
But to end up with Natalya, oh my gosh!
I was getting to that.
I don't even know what to say.
But ultimately, Lashley now more determined than ever to get his hands on Drew McIntyre in the WWE Championship. R-Truth would end up accepting a tag team match with both their titles on the line on Drew's behalf, which Drew was not thrilled with. He then would find out about 10 minutes later that Truth was able to talk them out of making his 24/7 title being on the line, basically meaning that you're having a tag team match with only his WWE Championship on the line. But Truth ends up holding his own, manages to win the match by pinfall over MVP with the help of a Claymore, and Drew's able to retain the championship again over Bobby Lashley.
Just going back into the night, I didn't like the whole situation with Lana and MVP to start with, but I also didn't like.
You didn't like one word in that segment.
It doesn't matter. It's just
there's a T word she really didn't like.
It's degrading and demeaning to women, and even as annoying as she is, it should have never been used.
Right. So I mean, definitely ruffled some feathers. And then Lana, of course, having to sit backstage after a segment in which case Natalya and Liv Morgan kind of, were forced to team together against the Iconics, and you end up having Liv make what Natalya referred to as rookie mistakes and ultimately cost them the match. You can kind of see they're getting ready to have Natalya and Lana kind of start pairing together. I'm okay with Lana being put back into a singles role because that's something that I really think fell short when she had her chance a couple of years ago on Smackdown. But that just means we're going to have to see more Natalya on TV, and I'm not a fan.
Here's my thing. You make your comment saying it's rookie mistakes. Honestly, rookie mistakes would have been if she hadn't improved herself and y'all had that match. I feel, in my opinion, Liv has done nothing but prove herself. She's gotten better. She's come out. She's taken down a lot of people, and I believe she still has work, but you sit here saying this girl's making rookie mistakes. I don't see it. I don't get it. To me, I feel like that's an insecurity on Natalya's part, and I said it. I'm not taking it back.
Well, ultimately, I mean, the one thing I just don't want to see is Liv Morgan, as you pointed out, has done everything that she's been asked to do. She beat Natalya at WrestleMania.
That's probably why
she's
still
been
pissed.
in Elimination Chamber matches. She's definitely one of the hottest people that is on the roster, literally and figuratively.
Yeah, most definitely.
The one thing I don't want to see them do, and you can kind of see it coming, is they're going to feed Liv Morgan to Lana to, build up Lana's role, and as a result, it's going to send Liv Morgan right back to catering again.
I would have been okay with the whole lesbian storyline between the two, but this right here, I'm just not okay with, because Liv's done everything in her power to be the best she can be and to work as hard as she can for her to be what we all see coming is fed to the wolves.
Right. And the last big segment of Raw was the, I guess you could officially say, the Raw appearance debut of Dominic Mysterio. who ended up being able to sneak up behind the Messiah, Seth Rollins, and was able to lay him out and then duck the two disciples, Murphy and Austin Theory, to manage to get the first strike against Seth.
We call that bobbing and weaving. That's what he did.
Yeah, well, he better keep ducking because he's got a lot of people swinging for him right now.
Hey,
I don't know if he's ready for this moment, but we're about to find out.
If he's like Mysterio, I feel like he is. With all the training I think he's had in the performance center, I feel like he's ready. I feel like he wouldn't have opened his mouth if he wasn't. And the fact that you came in, you snuck up on the Messiah. Nobody sneaks up on the Messiah without the Messiah knowing that you're in the building. And the fact that he did that, then he ducked and weaved and got out of there, I'm rooting for this kid.
Right. So, a lot of good storylines leading to what they're ultimately calling next week Championship Monday, as there are going to be 4 separate championship matches on... One more. There you go. You only did 3. There's going to lead to 4 championship matches on Raw this upcoming week. Let's see. The Women's Championship is going to be on the line again. Asuka's going to defend against Charlotte Flair. How many more title shots does Charlotte need? But, Vince loves him some Charlotte Flair, so I guess we'll see that again. And also knowing, of course, that Asuka has yet to beat Charlotte, and Charlotte beat Asuka a couple of weeks ago. That's been the one woman who's had her number the entire way, so we'll see if Asuka can continue that run.
Let's not even go back to WrestleMania.
Yeah,
that was just a heartbreak.
That hurt in New Orleans. Let's see. R-Truth's going to have to defend the 24/7 championship against Akira Tozawa, the leader of the... what do we call them? The Foot Clan? Is that a...
The Foot Clan Ninjas. I don't know.
Are we going to bring the Ninja Turtles in here at some point? And I still want to know who the big guy is. I mean, it looks like Titus O'Neil, but then they showed Titus O'Neil running some story today where he's off in another country. So if it's not Titus, then who is it?
He might have a twin brother we didn't know about.
Maybe.
Okay.
Big brother. Let's see. So that's going to happen. Finally, the Viking Raiders and the Street Profits are going to finally settle their what appears to be everlasting feud. That match will be for the Raw Tag Team Championships. And then also Apollo Crews is going to defend the United States Championship as well. I cannot for the life of me draw off the top of my head who he's facing.
I can't remember either.
But I do know he's defending the championship. So we will see, basically Raw trying to build up some ratings and putting 4 championship matches out on a single show.
We're just going to sit back
Nope. Actually,
out.
you know what? Let me back it up. It's not Apollo. Apollo's defending later on. It's the women's tag team titles, the Iconics and Sasha and Bailey. So,
I don't even know who you are. You forgot Sasha?
You want to do this by yourself?
You forgot Sasha and Bailey? Dose belts?
Yeah, it's those straps. You're going to get that at some point.
Bailey dose straps.
There you go. She was stress straps for a little while tonight, for those of you who watch SmackDown. So 4 championship matches on Raw, and I'm still not sure it beat NXT this week, because NXT is where we're transitioning to, put on arguably one of the better shows it's had in really a non-takeover role for quite some time. First of all, of course, the humongous announcement, a triple threat match next week for the North American Championship. You're going to have Keith Lee defending against both Johnny Gargano and Finn Balor at the same time. And then not only that, the winner not only, of course, is the North American Champion, but then on the July 8th episode of NXT, the winner of that match is going to face the NXT Champion Adam Cole in a winner takes all championship match.
Y'all know who I'm pulling for. I'm not going to even have to sit here and tell you.
Gargano.
Finn.
Yeah.
What?
You heard me. That cough wasn't that loud.
On the couch with you.
It's where I live at this point. But either way, but you've got 3 of the biggest names in all of NXT getting ready to have. Honestly, that match should be given no less than 45 minutes.
I agree
minimum,
with you. With you.
And then it doesn't matter which of the 3 comes out the winner. We know that all 3 of them are capable of putting on amazing matches with Adam Cole.
Exactly.
With both titles on the line, albeit this is probably all a setup for Karrion Kross to win one or potentially both of them. So, we'll see how it plays out. But, the fact is they're lining up a fantastic match. And then at the end of NXT, you have the women's tag team champions. This time we got it. Bayley Dose Straps and Sasha defending against Shotzi Blackheart and Tegan Nox in what ended up being a better than advertised match. Shotzi and Tegan able to hang with Bayley and Sasha for some time. Ultimately, a late mistake at the end, allowing the referee's attention to be diverted in a different direction, allows Bayley to take advantage of the situation. Sasha gets the submission win, and the champs retain.
I can tell you we did a poll on this, and I pulled for Shotzi and Tegan.
Right. I really don't think there was much threat of them losing because they had already, of course, advertised their match with the Iconics on Raw. But it would have been nice to at least give off the idea that potentially Shotzi and Tegan could have pulled it off.
It would have been a nice little upset, though.
Oh, absolutely. A little upset. That would have been a huge upset had it happened. But of course, the biggest moment behind it being after the match with the first appearance of Io Shirai, the new NXT Women's Champion. Her first appearance since she won the championship, laying out both Bayley and Sasha after everything's done and declaring, "This is my NXT." Potentially a setup as long as they're the women's tag champs. Of course, Sasha and Bayley can come back, and I have a feeling I don't think they're done with Io quite yet.
What about Io 2 belts?
Well, she'd have a long way to go, but all I know is everybody already sitting here licking their chops for Io and Sasha Banks.
I am.
Well, you got to think they already set up the rivalry. If you go all the way back to the Survivor Series we attended in Chicago, remember Sasha was the final pin to knock out Team Smackdown. It was Io was the one that drop kicked her to lay her out. So
maybe some
confrontation. What it means is that's the second time that Io has laid out Sasha, and so she's at this point she's likely tired of it.
Oh, I love to see that. I cannot wait.
So you figure you include all of this along with a very entertaining therapy segment with Roderick Strong talking about Dexter Lumis with a therapist who looks remarkably like Kyle O'Reilly.
Yeah, it does.
I'm sure it's not him though, but look very much like him.
Hey, maybe he might have a twin too. Who knows?
Maybe. Apparently everyone has twins now. It's like a good soap opera.
Mm-hmm.
So NXT just continuing to put on great matches, and what's amazing though, everyone giving Charlotte Flair a lot of grief for not being able to put over the division, and yet arguably I could say that Bayley and Sasha in 30 minutes may have done more for the entire women's division than Charlotte did in a month and a half, because in one night, in a 30-minute segment, they put over Shotzi Blackheart, Tegan Nox, and Io Shirai all as credible people. Mm-hmm. Because it wasn't like they just went in there and just steamrolled over Shotzi and Tegan. I mean, they put on a good 20-minute match before eventually, the champs ended up coming through. So, they are doing their best with using those women's tag titles to build over, everyone across all three shows.
I feel like this was robbery. I feel like the tag titles that they won early on, with them being the inaugural, I feel like if this is what we were going to see, if they would have kept the titles, I'd have been all for it. But I feel like, it was highway robbery, but who am I to say? Anyway, you're right. They're actually putting over all these women by saying, hey, we're going to come in, we're going to do this, and these women are credible threats or look to be credible threats. So that's a good thing.
Well, that's what you want. I mean, the idea is to build up your division. You don't necessarily need to just go in and run roughshod over all of them. They're doing their best to make everyone they compete against great.
I feel like it's kind of like a give back for when Sasha and Bayley were there and people were helping them, trying to get them over. I feel like, to me, that's a give back. But hey.
Well, I mean, that's the idea, is you want to go back and you want to make the people, your future, better. I mean, because eventually Shotzi Blackheart and Tegan Nox are not going to be NXT competitors. They're going to be Smackdown competitors. Or they're going to be Raw competitors. And they're going to be gunning for the titles you're holding right now. So you want to make sure that it's not just your current day roster that's looking great, but also your future as well. So we move to Smackdown tonight. You end up with a fantastic opening segment with AJ Styles, our new Intercontinental Champion, being coronated, forcing Daniel Bryan to have to put the belt around his waist before ultimately he's interrupted by the debuting Matt Riddle, who almost was able to goad Styles into a title match tonight, and Styles better be glad he didn't, because Riddle ends up upsetting AJ Styles in his SmackDown debut.
Daniel Bryan, bless your heart, you did not, kick him in the mouth. I would have kicked AJ in the mouth, and you know how much I love AJ. I would have kicked him square in his mouth. Too much.
He's been running his mouth quite a bit, and hopefully he's got the game to back it up, because due to his loss to Matt Riddle, as well as some comments from Daniel Bryan, he'll have to defend the Intercontinental title next week against Drew Gulak, a person who has already beaten AJ Styles once by pinfall a few weeks ago.
And they made that known.
Right, so, I mean, definitely possible that Gulak could win. I don't see Styles dropping it so quickly, but you never know. Hey, weirder things have happened. The Strowman Express running into his match right at the very end as he once again runs into Bray Wyatt, who clearly has not forgotten that he lost to Braun a couple of weeks ago for the Universal Championship. And in an interesting but albeit extremely satisfying segment that has got me just very much tingling with excitement for this.
First of all, before you say anything, I'm glad they brought the Funhouse back. I really was missing that. Go ahead, sorry.
Okay. So they end up, going back and, having the rabbit remind him that he beat him and everything else. But then he talks about, several things that, Bray learned during his time off, including one of them very clearly being noted as being able to resurrect the dead. And in a very interesting segment, he ends up reverting himself back to basically follow the Buzzards Bray with clear with the hat, the beard, the old Bahama man jacket or whatever, or shirt or whatever you want to call it. Those old Hawaiian shirts you hated me wearing when we were first dating.
Good God, please don't bring that up. You're embarrassing yourself. Stop.
New cosplay. Go back as old style Bray. We already have the rocking chair.
What rocking chair? What you?
I'm already on the couch. I might as well get my shots in.
Anyway.
Either way, clearly, setting it up that says before we can move forward in our, chapter or in our story, we first need to take a step back. So I really like the fact that we're going to continue to kind of revert back through the history of how Braun became to be a member of the Wyatt family, and can Wyatt be able to get into his head, and also is this going to be another match with Wyatt, or is eventually going to get to the finale and eventually to the Fiend, who we know is very capable of being Universal Champion.
I think it plays out for a good story. We've always said that it doesn't matter what character, we don't care what character Bray Wyatt is playing, the Firefly Funhouse, the Fiend, or the Man in the Rocking Chair. We just think he's good at all of it. So I feel like, in my opinion, as much as Braun is doing everything in his power to hop on the Express and run right through him, I feel like at some point the Fiend or Wyatt is going to get into his head and break him down mentally.
Right, and I think that's kind of the idea, because that's what Bray's character is best at, is, he's won matches before you ever even step in the ring. And then a very good segment tonight also with Miz and Morrison hosting Miz TV. The guest was Mandy Rose, but ultimately it was an entire setup to get Sonya Deville in what was an absolutely smoking suit.
We're going to have to correct you. It's Daddy Deville, please.
Daddy, call her Daddy, right? But anyway, I mean, you can clearly tell that the rivalry between Mandy and Sonya is still not done, and now they're finally kind of hitting the points that have been really obvious to the audience, but now they're finally starting to turn into storyline, like Sonya mentioning, I'm better than you in virtually every way except our looks. Blonde, half-dressed, pretty. I'm not, yet somehow you're getting all the attention, and it seems like that's the only reason why.
But Sonya feels like Mandy's not using the attention that she's getting for all the right reasons. She even took a shot at her by saying, poolside with Otis, kissing Otis, are you serious? Why aren't you taking this seriously?
Right. Why aren't you taking advantage of the opportunities that you
clearly granted?
Well, they're not being granted. Clearly, Sonya feels they're being handed to her, because of her looks, and maybe they are, but at the same time, Mandy at this point has gotten to the point where she's saying, what else do you need to be mad at me for? What more can I do, other than just be me at this point?
Ex-best friends fighting. What a shame.
Right. So, it's interesting to see where that storyline's going to go. But SmackDown, with us having, another full 4 weeks between now and the next pay-per-view, there's a lot of ways the stories can go. Some title matches are going to happen ahead of time.
But you saw what John Morrison and The Miz did. They kind of stirred the paint, as we like to say. And
stirred the pot, yeah.
Stirred the paint, stirred the pot.
Stir the paint is Angela Dawkins.
You know what I'm talking about.
Yep. So, there's a lot of different ways these stories can go. I think, honestly, a very good week, considering that usually the first week following out of
Backlash,
out of any pay-per-view is always typically an issue. Also, taking into account, of course, can't go without noting that this is supposedly the first week in which Vince was supposed to be in full control over all storylines, and as much flack and as much crap as he gets, honestly, he put on good shows this week.
But is it going to continue?
Right. Doing it 1 week is easy, but now you got to start building on each of those. But, really, there isn't a storyline that fell flat, and now you're going to be loaded with a ton of title matches, which for Mr. Plate Exchange here, is like a dream come true, because we could be seeing a lot of title changes over the next week. More on that in a minute, though. But with everything that's been happening, you know, we can't sit here and ignore, you know, the obvious elephants in the room. You know, we've had an opportunity to be able to speak on, you know, everything that's happened this weekend with enjoyment, but at the same time, we also have to speak about hashtag speaking out. We have put a PSA officially out on our show, so we're not gonna dive too much into it here. We're gonna kind of hit the bullet notes of what we need to say. If you want to get our full thoughts, please go back and watch that. It's you know, about a half hour long, a pair of 15-minute videos that are on there, but I promise you worth a listen. But a lot of news coming out, a lot of people, especially a lot of folks wrestling in Britain, you know, being, you know, basically being accused of, you know, a lot of heinous things, and you know, a couple of names have already been put out there. Unfortunately, Matt Riddle being one of them. A lot of people question whether his debut would still happen tonight. It's happened. Jordan Devlin, the current cruiserweight champion, is in question. Jack Gallagher was on that list, and he actually got released just before SmackDown started. So he's gone from the company. I don't know if this is the reason, or whether there was something else involved, and maybe, you know, they were, you know, this ended up being the straw that broke the camel's back for him. I don't know, but you know, we have a lot of people who are, you know, who watch us every week, and we appreciate it. That did, you know, some very brave things today, and you know, we want to, you know, make sure that you are commended for what you did, but also at the same time understand you're not alone.
Yeah, and that kind of leads us into, I am one of those people. If you saw the PSA, then you'd understand why, but if you haven't, go ahead and check them out now. I am one of those courageous people who is speaking out on being a victim to, we're going to go ahead and put it out there, abuse. I'm not going to delve into it tonight, but if you check me out tomorrow at 2, live with Questions with the Queen, you'll hear a lot of my stories, my opinions, my thoughts, my feelings on all forms of abuse, to not just myself as a woman, but females in general. With that being said, like I said, 2 o'clock tomorrow live, Questions with the Queen. Please tune in to take a listen. You are going to hear some nitty-gritty truths about what I've had to go through in the past with abuse. I mean, you know about it.
Right. I know some of the stories and most of what she's going to speak about, but you know, I can speak, you know, on behalf of both of us that these are things that we have never officially spoken about publicly. This is something that we've always handled in-house, but at this point, you know, with so many other brave people, we have always made it a point since we started this adventure on the show, that our platform would be used to set a positive example, not just for ourselves and for our wrestling fans, but for the world in general.
Exactly.
So tomorrow, as she mentioned, tomorrow's Questions with the Queen is not going to actually be a question segment. It's instead going to be, you know, Kia's opportunity to be able to speak out on what she has had to go through, and make it very clear to, you know, to people who are going through the same struggle that you're not alone. There are people who will support you. There are people that are going to be behind you. So all I'm going to say is bring your Kleenex. You know, she's going to, you know, Kia, you've already said you're going to use your time tonight and tomorrow morning to kind of get your thoughts together. But if you have never watched a live segment with us before, I would very much encourage you to have tomorrow be that first one at 2 o'clock, because this is one that, you know, she's going to have, you know, a good bit to say, and
pretty much it's going to be
support would be appreciated.
Exactly. It's going to be raw, emotional, heartbreaking, and devastating.
Right. But as we mentioned in the PSA, because we said we wouldn't dwell on this too long, but for anybody who has spoken out or wants to speak out, whether that be publicly or privately, we have you know, said that we're going to use our platform for good, as I feel that anyone who has a platform should be able to do so. So if you feel like you have something that you want to say, or a story, or something that's happened that you want to be able to speak about, you know, our messaging is open. You know, we will keep everything as confidential as you want it to be, but do not feel like you've got to stay silent. You know, if you feel like you need to say something, or you need to speak out, or if nothing else, if you just want someone just to listen to you for a little while, do not hesitate. Message us.
We're
you can
here.
Talk to both of us. Talk to just me. Talk to just Kia. Doesn't matter. Whatever will work for you, we will do our best to accommodate, because we've made it a point to be very open and to use our platform appropriately. So, you know, we commend everyone who has, you know, done this. you know, and has come out and has, you know, tried to make change for the world for the better, you know, because ultimately we all have to live in this world. We've got children that are being raised in this world, so we want to, you know, give them a better world than what we have had to live through up to this point. Also, of course, as you may or may not be aware, of course, today is also Juneteenth. Juneteenth is the special, you know, day when, you know, going back into the 1800s, that the slaves were officially freed, to, you know, officially declare the end of slavery in America. It is, of course, a very huge day in most of the world. 47 states in our union do represent and recognize Juneteenth, some of them even as state holidays where you don't have to work.
Yeah.
Our state not being one of them. I work today. But, you know, again, with everything going on with Black Lives Matter, it's a very important day for the African American race. And, you know, again, we're continuing to try to listen, learn, and try to do our best to understand to the best of our ability what is happening. But today is a very important day, and it's not to be dismissed as something trivial.
Exactly. The more you know, the more you educate yourself, the better off you'll be.
Exactly. So if you haven't had a chance to, you know, to say, you know, Happy Juneteenth to somebody, be sure to do so, because this was a very critical day in the history of our country, and at a time in which we seem like we're more divided than ever. You know, these are opportunities for us to unite the world back together, but united as a world that everyone can be happy in, everyone can be treated right in, and everyone can be able to live their lives without fear or without risk of, you know, being ridiculed or mocked for something that may or may not be beyond their control.
Exactly.
So, you know, we're trying, you know, we try to keep our shows, you know, happy-go-lucky and everything, upbeat, and we're going to do our best to try to do that, but, you know, we can't ignore what's out there, so we wanted to make sure it is acknowledged. If you do have comments or, you know, anything you'd like to say on it, you know, by all means, again, we said it, our messaging is open. With that, that's going to bring a wrap to our show this week. Once again, a huge shout out to TooSweetCosplay. Thank you very much for, you know, showing off our cosplays. Naomi, if you're watching, please put a heart on it. Okay, I've been asking for weeks, and she's not answering. I'm about to be heartbroken. I think we're just gonna have to eat an L on that one. I don't care. Shake your head all you want. I want the glow to notice. But anyway, you know, we hit some very topics, and we're not done yet. You know, as I said, please join us tomorrow at 2 o'clock for Questions with the Queen, which will be a little different than we're used to, because, you know, as I said, Kia's going to have an opportunity to be able to speak her mind and to, you know, say that, you know, she, even with our, you know, I guess, D-list celebrity status, if you'll give it that, you know, we're not immune to it either. You know, Kia has, you know, gone through experiences no different than some of these victims have as well. And, you know, we don't feel we would be using our platform properly if we didn't sit here and say that, you know, hey, if we're victims as well, we need to speak out.
With that being said, see you tomorrow at 2 with Questions with the Queen, and do us all a favor. Wash your hands, put on a mask, sanitize, try not to go out. If you have to go out, stay 6 feet away from the next person. We don't want you catching anything, and I, for myself, want to get back to the arenas.
I agree. So you guys have yourself a great rest of your evening. We'll see you guys tomorrow, all right?
Love you.
Y'all be safe.
Bye.